Welcome back to Hidden Family Infidelity and Revenge. Today's story is one of those slow burns that turns into a wildfire. A man who found out the worst way possible that the two people he trusted most had been destroying him behind his back, and instead of falling apart, he got methodical. He got quiet. And quiet, it turns out, is the most dangerous thing a betrayed person can be. Settle in. This one's a ride, so I'm going to start at the beginning. Because the beginning matters. My name's not important. What matters is that I'm 31. I work in commercial real estate, and until about 4 months ago, I thought I had the kind of life other people envied. Good career, nice house. A wife, I'll call her Natalie, who I met at a kayaking trip organized by a mutual friend group when we were both 25. She had this laugh. You know how some people laugh and it sounds rehearsed, like they're performing it? Hers wasn't like that. It came out of nowhere, loud and a little embarrassing, and she never cared. That was the thing that got me. She didn't care what she looked like when she was happy. I fell for her fast. We dated for 2 years, got engaged, and married about 18 months later. Good years, honestly. I don't want to rewrite history and make it seem like it was always troubled. It wasn't. We traveled, we built a life, we had plans, but somewhere in the last year and a half of our marriage, something shifted. And I didn't want to see it, so I didn't. The signs weren't dramatic. They never are they? Natalie started working later. Not every night, just enough that it felt explainable. She joined a book club that met every other Thursday and sometimes ran long. She started taking her phone into the bathroom. She stopped reaching for my hand when we watched TV. Little things. The kind of things you file away under "she's just tired," or "we're in a routine," or "this is just what marriage feels like after a few years." I brought it up once, gently. She said I was being needy. I brought it up again a few weeks later. She said I had anxiety issues and maybe I should talk to someone. I stopped bringing it up. What I did instead, and I'm not proud of how long it took me to do this, was start paying attention differently. Not snooping, just noticing. The book club friends she mentioned? I'd met most of her friend group over the years, and I didn't recognize any of the names she dropped. When I asked casually one night who was in the club, she listed 3 women. I happened to mention one of those names to a mutual friend the following week. "Sophie's in a book club with Nat," my friend said. Weird. Sophie told me she hates reading. That was the thread. The guy she was seeing, I'll call him Derek, wasn't a stranger to me. That's the part that still sits in my chest like a stone. Derek and I had met through a work connection about 3 years ago. We weren't close friends. We ran in overlapping circles. The kind of guy you nod at across a barbecue, maybe share a beer with, know enough about to ask how his sister's doing. Friendly, but surface level. Natalie had met him at our housewarming party 2 years into our marriage. He'd come with someone else. I can't even remember who now. I remember thinking he and Natalie got along well. Easy conversation. I thought nothing of it because I trusted my wife, and I had no reason not to. I'm sure you can see where this is going. What actually broke it open wasn't anything cinematic. It was a parking stub. Natalie had borrowed my car one Thursday. Hers was getting an oil change, and when I got it back the following day, I found a parking stub in the center console from a garage downtown. Stamped 7:14 p.m. on a Thursday. The same Thursday she'd told me she had book club in the suburbs. That garage is 3 blocks from Derek's apartment building. I know this because I'd helped him move a piece of furniture there about a year and a half ago. I sat in the driveway with that parking stub in my hand for a long time. I didn't confront her that night. Something in me said, wait, get more. Because if I was wrong, I'd blow up my marriage over a parking stub. And if I was right, I wanted to walk in with more than a parking stub. Over the next 2 weeks, I was a different version of myself, still present. Still saying good morning, still asking about her day, still sitting across from her at dinner. But inside, I was somewhere else entirely. I started quietly documenting. Nothing illegal. I want to be clear about that. I paid attention to her schedule. I noticed patterns. The book club Thursdays were consistent. So were certain Saturday mornings when she'd go for what she called a long run and come back without being visibly sweaty. I reached out to a lawyer. I'll call him Mr. Okafor. recommended by a college friend who'd been through a divorce 2 years earlier. I emailed him on a Wednesday afternoon. He called me back within the hour, which I took as a good sign. He asked me what I had. I told him about the parking stub and the patterns. He said, "Don't confront her yet. Come see me, and let's talk about what this state requires. We live in a fault state." I didn't know what that meant until Mr. Okafor explained it to me in a very calm, measured voice that felt almost surreal given the circumstances. What it meant, in plain terms, was that documented evidence of infidelity would significantly affect what Natalie could claim in a settlement. He said, "If you're right, what you do in the next few weeks matters more than you know." I nodded. I went home. I made dinner. I watched TV with my wife and said nothing. The confirmation came on a Saturday. Natalie left at 9 a.m. for her long run. I waited 15 minutes, then drove to Derek's building. Her car was in the visitor lot. I sat there looking at it. I took a photo with my phone, time-stamped, location tagged. I drove home. I sat in our living room. The one we'd argued about repainting for 4 months. The one with the blue accent walls she'd finally chosen, and I felt something I didn't expect. Not rage, not grief, a kind of terrible clarity. I called my older brother Caleb. He's the person I go to when I need to think, not when I need to feel. I told him what was happening. His first words were, "Do not do anything stupid. Tell me you haven't said anything to her yet." I told him I hadn't. He said, "Good. What do you need?" I said I needed a drink and someone to sit with me. He drove 40 minutes to get to my house. We sat on the back deck, and I told him everything. The parking stub, the visits, the cover stories, Derek. The part about Derek hit him hard. He'd met Derek at our wedding. Caleb said, "What's your plan?" I said, "I don't have one yet. That's why you're here." We talked for 3 hours. By the end of it, I had the beginning of a framework. Step 1, more documentation. Enough to give Mr. Okafor something substantial. Step 2, once I had that, move forward with filing. Step 3, tell the people who deserve to know before she could shape the story. Step 4, figure out if Derek was seeing anyone seriously and whether she deserved to know. He was. Her name, I found out through Caleb, who knew someone who knew her, was Priya. They'd been together for almost 2 years. She thought they were heading toward an engagement. Over the next 10 days, I built a quiet, thorough case. I kept a log. Dates, times, locations when I had them. I captured 2 more instances of her car at his building, on days she'd given me other explanations. I met with Mr. Okafor a second time and handed over everything I had. He looked through it with his reading glasses on, set it down, and said, "This is more than enough. When do you want to move forward?" I said, "How soon can we get papers ready?" He said 2 weeks, maybe less. I said, "Let's go." There's a moment in this kind of situation, and I think anyone who's been through it knows what I mean, where you realize you've been living next to a version of your life that was never real, and you have to decide whether you're going to fall apart or get very, very focused. I chose focused. I met Priya at a coffee place near her office. I'd reached out through a mutual acquaintance with just a message that said, "I need to talk to you about something important. It involves Derek. I'm sorry to do it this way." She agreed to meet. I think some part of her already knew. We sat across from each other and I said, "There's no good way to say this. Derek has been involved with my wife for at least several months. I have documentation. I'm already working with a lawyer. I'm not here to upset you. I'm here because if the situation were reversed, I'd want someone to tell me." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "How long?" I told her what I knew. I showed her the log, not the photos, just the dates and locations. She looked at each entry carefully. The way someone reads a document they're hoping will say something different than it does. She thanked me. She stood up, shook my hand, actually shook my hand, which for some reason I found incredibly dignified, and left. Natalie was served on a Tuesday afternoon at her office. I know this because Mr. Okafor texted me at 2:47 p.m. Confirmed. Papers delivered. I was in a client meeting. I excused myself, went to the men's room, stood over the sink, and breathed. Then I went back into the meeting and finished it. She called me 11 times between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. I let every call go. She texted, "We need to talk. Please." And then, "I know what this is. Please don't do this." And then several more that escalated in a way I won't detail here. When I got home that evening, she was sitting on the front steps. She'd been crying. She looked up at me and started to say something, and I said, very quietly, "Don't. There's nothing you can say that I haven't already thought through." She tried anyway. She said it wasn't what I thought, that it had been a mistake, that she loved me. I let her finish. Then I said, "I know about the parking garage. I know about the Saturday mornings. I know about Derek's building. I have dates and documentation going back months. My lawyer has all of it. There is no version of this conversation where I don't already know." The look on her face in that moment, I don't feel good describing it. Even now, after everything, she's still a person. But what I saw was someone who had spent months lying to me and had just run out of road. She said, "I'm so sorry." I said, "I know you are. I need you to gather what you need for tonight and make other arrangements. We can coordinate the rest through the lawyers." She left Oplin 1. It's been a little over a week since I posted the original, and I want to first say, the responses I got were more than I expected. People I've never met offering support, advice, their own stories. It helped more than I can explain. Here's where things stand. I met with my doctor and got tested. Results came back clean. I wasn't particularly surprised. Natalie and I had been distant for months, but you don't leave that to chance. I reached out to the people closest to me. My parents, my brother Caleb, two friends who've known me most of my life. Every single one of them was steadying in a way I needed. No drama, no prying. Just, "What do you need? We're here." That's the kind of people you want around you in something like this. I also told Natalie's parents. That was one of the harder conversations. Her mother picked up and I said, "I want to thank you both for the years you welcomed me into your family. I mean that. But Natalie and I are divorcing, and I felt you deserved to hear it from me directly." Her mother went quiet for a moment and then asked why. I told her there had been an affair. She said she was so sorry. She asked if there was any chance we could work through it. I said no. Her father called me back about an hour later. He said, "I don't know what to say to you. I'm ashamed of what she did." That meant something to me. It still does. Natalie's younger brother, Marcus, is someone I'd gotten close to over the years. He texted me 2 days later. "I heard. I don't know what to say except I'm furious at her and I'm not going anywhere. You're still family to me." I had to put my phone down for a minute after that one. Priya and I have been in contact a few times. Brief check-ins, nothing heavy. She told me she asked Derek to leave. She said her family was around her. She seemed steadier than I expected. Or maybe she was just holding it together in the way you do when you're in the middle of something. I told her she didn't owe me updates, but that I was there if she needed to talk to someone who actually understood. She said she appreciated that. I've been spending evenings at the gym. Not for any noble reason, just because I need somewhere to put everything, and the gym is better than the alternatives. It's helping. The house feels strange without her things, though I realize I'd rather have it strange and quiet than full and dishonest. Caleb comes over a couple times a week. We watch sports and don't talk about any of it for hours at a time, which is exactly what I need. Mr. Okafor says the process is moving well. He called me last week and said, "You make my job very easy. Please keep doing exactly what you're doing. I'll update again when there's more to share. Thank you for reading." Two keys. Too high, everyone. It's been about 2 weeks since my last update, and I want to start by saying I went through a rough stretch. I'd been holding it together well. Too well, maybe. The practicalities kept me occupied. The lawyer, the paperwork, the calls, the documentation. But somewhere in the middle of week 2, after all of that slowed down, the actual weight of it hit me. 7 years. That's how long I've known Natalie. 3 of those married. You don't just lose a marriage, you lose a version of your life you thought you were building. I'm not going to pretend I handled that stretch gracefully. I didn't go to the gym. I ordered delivery every night. I called Caleb too late at least twice and didn't have much to say when he answered. He stayed on the phone anyway. What pulled me out of it, actually, was a message from Marcus. He drove 3 hours to show up at my door on a Sunday morning with coffee and exactly zero agenda. He said, "I'm not here to talk about my sister. I'm here because you didn't do anything wrong and you shouldn't be alone right now." We spent the day doing nothing of consequence. Went to a hardware store, wandered around, grabbed lunch, talked about baseball. At some point in the afternoon, he said, "She doesn't deserve how much space she's taking up in your head." And that landed somewhere it needed to. He stayed the night and left the next morning. On his way out, he said, "You know you're still my brother, right?" I told him that meant more than I knew how to say. Priya reached out around that same time. She asked if we could meet again, not for information or logistics, just to talk to someone who understood the specific shape of what she was going through. We met for coffee and talked for nearly 2 hours. She was processing out loud, which I understood completely. Her family was supportive but kept leaning toward forgive and move on. And she didn't know how to explain that it wasn't that simple. I told her what someone told me early in all this. Your gut already knows the answer. The question is just whether you're going to trust it or keep auditioning other people's opinions to see if any of them are louder. She laughed a little at that. It was the first time I'd seen her smile. We parted ways, and I felt, strangely, a little better. There's something about being useful to someone else in the middle of your own mess that reorients you. Mr. Okafor called the following week to tell me Natalie's lawyer had sent over an initial list of demands that he described as ambitious. "She wants the house," he said. I said, "I know." He said, "She won't get it. But I want you to be prepared for this to take longer than we hoped." I asked what that meant. He walked me through the process, the responses, the counters, the posturing that happens before any real negotiation begins. He sounded completely unbothered by it, which helped. "She doesn't have leverage," he said. "She knows it. Her lawyer knows it. This is noise." I told him I trusted his judgment and to keep moving. I'll post again when there's something new. 2's 3 for those keeping up. Thank you, genuinely. Here's where things have landed. About a week ago, Natalie showed up at the house. I want to be clear. I didn't let her in. I'd changed the locks shortly after she left, on Mr. Okafor's guidance, and I'd had a security camera system installed at the front entry and back porch. She knocked first. When I didn't answer, she started calling my name through the door. Then she called my phone. I watched it ring and didn't pick up. This went on for about 20 minutes, the volume and desperation both rising. I'd texted Caleb as soon as I heard her outside. He arrived within 15 minutes. By the time he got there, Natalie was sitting on the front step, crying loudly. He pulled up and sat in his car, which I'd asked him to do. Just be present, be a witness, don't engage. Eventually, she left on her own. I went through the camera footage later and saved it all and sent it to Mr. Okafor, who responded, "Perfect. Keep doing exactly this." What I didn't expect was the call I got from Marcus the next morning. He'd heard from his parents that Natalie was in a bad state, not just upset, unraveling. She'd apparently told their parents that I was being cruel to her, that the divorce was unprovoked, that I'd changed and become cold, and she didn't understand why. Marcus said he'd sat in on that conversation, and when their parents started leaning toward believing her, he'd stopped the whole thing. "I told them what you told me," he said. "I told them what she did. They didn't know the specifics." There was a long silence on his end, and then my mom cried. My dad didn't say anything for a long time. And then he said, "She threw away something good and she's trying to make it his fault." That was a hard thing to hear, not because it hurt me, but because I knew it cost Marcus something to be the one who said it. I told him I was sorry he was in the middle. He said, "I put myself there. There's a difference. The negotiation is in progress." Mr. Okafor has responded to Natalie's initial demands with what he described as a polite but comprehensive rebuttal. I'll spare you the legal vocabulary, but in plain terms, she came in asking for the house and a substantial share of assets. We countered with the terms that actually reflect what the documentation supports, which in a fault state is not particularly favorable to the person who committed documented infidelity. Her lawyer, according to Mr. Okafor, went quieter after that. "They know what we have," he said. "Nobody wants to walk into court with this. Priya sent me a message last week. Just 3 words. I filed today." I wrote back, "How are you?" she said, scared. "Okay, ready." I told her those 3 things could absolutely coexist. She sent back a single thumbs up, which I think is the most emotionally precise response that emoji has ever been used for. I'll post one more update when the process concludes. I've been asked by a few people whether I think Marcus and I will stay close after all of this. The honest answer is yes. Some friendships exist because of a shared context. The best ones survive when the context disappears. I think that one's going to make it. Thank you for reading. Let 4. Final. This is the last update, and I want to keep it clean and honest and short. We met in a neutral office. My lawyer, her lawyer, Natalie, and me. I hadn't seen her in person since the night she'd come to the front door a few weeks earlier. She looked exhausted. I imagine I did too. Mr. Okafor opened by laying out what we had and what we were offering. A split of the shared savings account, nothing from my business assets since those predated our marriage, and a buyout of her portion of the house so I could sell it cleanly without involving her. Her lawyer asked if there was any room to move on the property. Mr. Okafor said, "There is not. And I'll remind you what we're prepared to present at court, which I believe neither of your clients wants." There was a pause. Natalie looked at me. I don't know what she was hoping to see. I kept my face neutral. Mr. Okafor had told me going in, "Do not react to anything. Let the room work for you." She looked back at the table. She signed. "It'll be finalized in about 6 weeks. The house goes on the market next month. I've already started looking at apartments. Smaller, simpler, quieter. Something that's just mine. I coached our last home game of the season last week. We lost, which stings, but the kids played with everything they had, and sometimes that's the whole point. After the game, one of my players, 15 years old, big kid, terrible batting average, best attitude on the team, came up and said, "Coach, you seemed more like yourself today." I told him I was getting there. He nodded like that, made complete sense, and jogged off to join his teammates. I want to say something to anyone reading this who's in the early part of their own version of this story. When it's still loud and raw, and you don't know what solid ground feels like anymore. The noise is temporary. Your job right now isn't to fix anything. It's to not make it worse. Get a lawyer if you can. Document everything. Tell the truth to the people who deserve it. Let yourself be angry, but somewhere private, not somewhere you'll regret. And find your Caleb. Find your Marcus. Find whoever your version of those people is, and let them show up for you. You're going to be fine. I know that sounds hollow right now. Say it anyway. Thank you to everyone who's followed along and left kind words over these months. More than you know. Take care of yourselves. That's it for today on Hidden Family Infidelity and Revenge. If this story moved you, hit like and subscribe. New stories every week. And if you want more content, check out our extended library, where we cover the full spectrum of real-life relationship stories. We'll see you in the next one.